Liam Coen isn't going anywhere after he drops out of consideration for the Jaguars head coaching job. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarko at JYarko_Bucs, here with you every Monday through Friday, along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. It's not all great news for the Bucs as they do lose one key member of the front office, but more on that coming up in a little bit. Instead, we're starting with the good news, and that is offensive coordinator Liam Coen is staying in Tampa. I cannot even begin to stress how big this is for the Bucs moving into 2025. And I know on yesterday's show, I was speaking with Evan Klosky about the Bucs expecting to lose him to Jacksonville as early as Wednesday. We were talking about potential replacements at offensive coordinator, but the news dropped Wednesday morning that Coen had removed himself from consideration and that he is now one of the NFL's highest paid coordinators. This is monumental for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, Todd Bowles, as a head coach in Tampa, will have the same offensive coordinator 2 years in a row for the first time. That goes a long way in terms of continuity among not just the players, but the coaching staff. There's no turnover among the coordinators and the position coaches. There's no change in anything. It stays the same, and that's huge. Second, this is the first time in Baker Mayfield's career, not just his time with the Bucs, his career, that he has the same offensive coordinator 2 years in a row. That means there's no learning an entirely new offense. There's no learning a new playbook. There's no learning new verbiage. There's no new anything. Everything is the same as it was last year, and they have the ability to build off of that. This is also big for the offense in that ability to build and improve off of what they did in 2024. So Greg Auman of Fox Sports dropped this tidbit on Twitter, and I think it's worth bringing up. Shout out to Greg Auman, the godfather of the Locked On Bucs podcast. But Greg tweeted out, these are the NFL ranks that the Buccaneers offense went from in 2023 under Dave Canales to 2024 under Liam Coen. Total offense from 23rd to 3rd. Scoring offense, 20th to 4th. Rushing offense, 32nd to 4th. Passing offense, 17th to 3rd. Third down offense, 10th to 1st. Red zone offense, 30th to 4th. Top 4 across the board in offense last season under Liam Coen. Now, talk about the potential of this team if they're able to build and improve off of last year and actually increase their standing in all of those categories. We're talking about potentially the top offense in the NFL in 2025. A full season of Bucky Irving getting north of 70% of the carries and the touches for running backs, a full season of the Jalen McMillan that we saw over the last 6 weeks, a full season of hopefully a healthy Chris Godwin, who was on pace to have career highs in every single receiving statistic and would have competed for the Triple Crown with Jamar Chase. This is an offense that could truly take the league by storm next season as long as they don't hurt themselves with bad decisions and boneheaded mistakes. But let's talk about Chris Godwin for a minute, because of course it's going to be huge that the Bucs bring him back. The return of Liam Coen, I believe, means that it's well over a 90% chance that Godwin returns next season. If Liam Coen had left, I think Jacksonville certainly would have been an option for him to continue to play in Cohen's offense. And who knows, maybe he does still leave. Maybe he takes a look at a team like the Commanders, where he can team up with Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin. He can look to Buffalo, where he could be an incredible weapon for Josh Allen. Baltimore would be pretty close to his hometown, and Lamar could certainly use a receiver of Godwin's caliber. But ultimately, the Bucs are where Godwin will be able to do his best work in that offense run by Liam Coen that utilizes him in ways that other teams won't. Yes, he's still the number 2 behind Mike Evans, but that's how it's always been. And it's always worked beautifully. Those two guys are tight, and they know the dynamic that they bring when they're on the field together. Now, with Coen returning, I think that the Bucs go all in to make sure that they can bring Chris Godwin back into the fold next season. You're talking about a team that you saw better usage of Payne Durham and Devin Culp down the stretch when Cade Otton went down. You would expect that they build off of that success and that Cade Otton isn't really the sole tight end target for Baker Mayfield anymore. They can utilize those other guys. You're talking about now the potential of Sterling Shepard returning. He had some solid moments in that offense last year with Baker Mayfield. He is going to be an option for the Bucs. You're talking about maybe you have Rachaad White back, maybe you don't. But now you're talking about Sean Tucker, who took a big step forward under Liam Coen's tutelage. You're talking about an offensive line that really started to galvanize and come together throughout the season. You could bring Ben Bredeson back. That would be another big coup for the Buccaneers, knowing what they would have in that starting 5 up front for Liam Coen and the role that they played in the success that Coen's offense had last season. So a lot of dominoes are going to start to fall into place now because Liam Coen is returning. A lot of speculation of people, on Twitter talking about how, the Bucs promised Coen that there's a succession plan and that he's going to be the head coach and all this. Rick Stroud came out and said that wasn't the case. That wasn't part of the negotiation, that it was strictly a matter of a combination of a couple of things. The Bucs making Liam Coen one of the highest paid coordinators in the NFL. I can't remember who said it, but someone pointed out Vic Fangio with the Philadelphia Eagles making around $4.5 million a year. They said that Coen's deal is probably about the same. It's going to be significant for a coordinator. And you take a look at the option that he had. And I know I talked a lot last year about how I didn't think the Panthers were the right fit for Dave Canales. Looks like towards the end of the season, I was wrong about that. He's starting to turn the Panthers around a little bit. But you take a look at the state of the Jacksonville Jaguars. It would have been a downgrade across the board at every position for Liam Coen. But not only that, you had the disaster of Trent Baalke calling the shots. So the domino effect there on Wednesday, Coen drops out. He decides he's going to stay in Tampa. And a few hours later, Trent Baalke is fired from the Jacksonville Jaguars. They said it was a mutual agreement, parting of ways. No, it's the fact that the Jaguars saw every single one of their top options go to other places. Jacksonville, truly, another person, and I apologize, I should have written it down. I don't remember who tweeted it, but she had said that the Jaguars were absolutely shocked that Liam Coen dropped out because of how well that initial interview went. But when he looked at the situation that he was in and the situation he could have been in, he chose to stay where he was going to be able to find the most success. But it's not all sunshine and roses for the Bucs as they lose a key member of the front office. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings, whether you're betting on your favorite team, just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs. FanDuel has you covered. The Eagles and Chiefs are both favored to win this weekend, with the Eagles being the Super Bowl favorite at plus 175, the Chiefs coming in second at plus 210, then the Bills at plus 250, and the Commanders at plus 850. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every day. The new Locked On NFL is here, and it's 2 shows every day. You got the Madman Tyler Rowland in the morning. Then you can swing by the barbershop in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins. You add in Locked On Local Experts. You get unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL, and it's twice a day. So make it your second listen at the new Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. John Spytek, the longtime assistant to Jason Licht in the Bucs front office, is headed to Las Vegas to join Tom Brady as the Raiders' new general manager. This is a blow to the Bucs front office, but it's hard to be too down considering the Bucs were able to keep Liam Coen and, of course, cap genius Mike Greenberg. Now, don't get me wrong, Spytek is no slouch when it comes to the salary cap and his eye for talent, especially in the draft. That is going to be missed big time. This is a really solid hire for the Raiders as he rejoins his Michigan teammate and the quarterback that got him a Super Bowl ring just 4 years ago. But what does this mean for the Bucs and Jason Licht? I would think that they're going to promote from within to name a new assistant GM like they have in the past. Now, Mike Greenberg still is an assistant GM, but there were 2 assistant GMs with Greenberg and Spytek. So if they name a new one, my guess is that it's going to be Mike Beal. So Beal is currently the director of player personnel, and that was the position that Spytek had before his promotion. Beal has been with the Bucs for going on 12 years now, spending the last 3 as the director of player personnel. Before that, he was the director of college scouting for the Buccaneers. But prior to the Bucs, Beal worked for the San Diego Chargers for 13 years as the assistant director of scouting, and he spent a few years with the Bills before that in their personnel department. So Beal's eye for talent, he has been instrumental in the Buccaneers drafts since 2015. That's a huge part of why the Bucs are where they are right now. He is a huge part of building that Super Bowl 55 team through the draft and helping Jason Licht create a roster that was intriguing to somebody like Tom Brady to come in as a free agent and then go on to win a Super Bowl. Now, something to keep in mind, going back to a show that I did with Evan a few weeks back, is that now there is a solid relationship between the front offices of Tampa and Las Vegas. Spytek has a lot of work to do with that Raiders team, and he's going to need a lot of capital to accomplish that. The Raiders have nearly $100 million in cap space going into next season. That's a really, really good start. They have 8 picks in the draft. They have the 6th overall. They have 1 in each round, but they also have 2 total in the 3rd round. This is a team that needs just about everything on offense, including a quarterback. Now, defensive star Maxx Crosby is their best player, but he's someone that has started to voice his displeasure with the team and may be looking to get out. The Bucs Super Bowl window is open now. I have talked about it numerous times. Evan has talked about it numerous times. This was a team that was built for a true championship run in 2025. In order to accomplish that, they need some key pieces, and the most important are a top-tier edge rusher, a corner, and a linebacker. The Raiders need to load up on picks to build for the future and look to become a legit contender by 2027 or 2028. You're in a division with the Kansas City Chiefs and the up-and-coming Denver Broncos. It's going to take a lot of work to be able to compete in that division. This is a way to stockpile a few picks, maybe get a young player, and look to build their future. The ability for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to land Maxx Crosby will never be higher than it is right now. These are going to be two GMs that trust one another and will be more than willing to work out a deal that is best for both sides. If Crosby actually becomes available, the Buccaneers stand a very, very real chance to land him, and they should be the favorites to land him if this situation comes to fruition. The Bucs, of course, are going to have to figure out the money situation. Crosby is owed $22 million this year, $18 million next year. So the Bucs would need to work out an extension that change up the cap hits a little bit year by year, probably adding in some void years to make the money work. But that's something that they've done dozens of times and is going to be relatively easy since they kept Mike Greenberg. The other hurdle is that the Raiders may choose to cut him. There's an out in the contract that they can exercise that will leave them with about $10 million in dead cap, which they can easily absorb. But I would think that they wouldn't want to get rid of Crosby for nothing if they are going to move on. If Crosby does indeed want out, they are going to look to get assets back in order to let him walk. They have a roster that essentially has to be built from scratch. You have an all-world tight end in Brock Bowers. You have a couple of little pieces here and there, but this is a roster that needs a complete overhaul. You're not going to want to get rid of your star defensive player if it means that you're not getting anything back in return. Crosby is just 27 years old. This is the kind of trade that you make to keep him around for the better part of the next 8, 9, 10 years. You give up day 2 picks to land him because you know that you're going to keep him. This is not a rental. This is a short and a long-term move, so the price is going to be high. And by high, I mean we are talking at minimum a second-round pick this year and then probably a day 2 or early day 3 pick next year and potentially a player. I mentioned last week that Rachaad White would be a piece that the Raiders might be interested in bringing in as part of a deal for Maxx Crosby. That seems to make a lot of sense to me. I know people don't like it. I like Rachaad. I'd love to see him stick around. But if Rachaad is a little perturbed about not being the RB1 in Tampa anymore since Bucky Irving has taken over that job, he would, without a doubt, be the RB1 in Las Vegas. He would be a key part of their offense, and he's entering a contract year. You're probably not going to bring him back. That's not been the Bucs' MO. They have not been re-signing these running backs to multiple deals after they've, ended their rookie deal. They're going to look to the draft, maybe this year, maybe next year, to bring in another running back to add in. But back to Maxx Crosby, for a guy that had 13 sacks in 2022, 15 sacks in 2023. He had just 8 sacks last year, but he only played in 12 games. This is the alpha edge guy that you desperately need. The Buccaneers have not had a double-digit sack player since Shaq Barrett had just 10 in 2021. This would be major, and it's probably something that I'm going to be talking about a whole lot in the coming weeks and months as we gear up towards free agency coming in March. But who is someone else that the Bucs may look to in order to bolster their pass rush? That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. Therapy is a game changer. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within 48 hours. And it's convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your home, even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, and for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize your mental health. As a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL. Then enter promo code SPACE80. That's SPACE, the number 8, the number 0. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL and enter promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show your support for the show. That's Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL, promo code SPACE80. Wrapping things up here on a Wednesday edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast. And I'm not going to go through every free agent edge rusher on this episode. We have plenty of time to talk about the free agent edge rushers that the Bucs could potentially bring in. But there's one in particular that I think we should talk about, and that's Khalil Mack. Mack, according to Adam Schefter, is going to play in 2025, and he is scheduled to become a free agent after playing last year with the Chargers on a 1-year deal. Mack spent 4 years in Oakland before being traded to Chicago, where he spent the next 4 years, and then he's been with the Chargers for the last 3. He's made 9 Pro Bowls and has double-digit sacks in 5 seasons, including 17 sacks in 2023. Now, he played last year on a 1-year, $19 million deal. I don't think he's going to get nearly $20 million for one season during this run of free agency, but he probably has 1 or 2 really productive seasons left as he's coming up on his age 34 season. Unlike Crosby, who I just talked about, this would be a rental. Mack would be nothing more than a Band-Aid, not a true solution. But again, we're talking about the Buccaneers being in a Super Bowl window, so you are going to have a mix of long-term and short-term players on the roster, just like you did during the Brady years. Gronk was a short-term guy. Antonio Brown was a short-term guy. Lenny, Ndamukong Suh was a short-term guy. You're going to have that mix of players. According to SpotTrack, his estimated market value is around $7 million a year. And I think that's more than fair. And if that's what it's going to cost, the Bucs should absolutely be trying to bring him in. Shoot, at that price, bring him in and still trade for Maxx Crosby. Imagine those two coming off the edge, along with Yaya Diaby, Chris Braswell, Anthony Nelson as part of that rotation, Servassier Dennis coming back, sending him in on blitzes, Antoine Winfield Jr., going back to being Antoine Himfield Jr. You would constantly have fresh, effective edge rushers just making life on opposing quarterbacks absolute hell. Now, I don't think that they would sign Mack and trade for Crosby, but both are legitimately viable options now for the Buccaneers. There's other guys that we'll talk about, I'm sure, that are going to be hitting free agency, like DeMarcus Lawrence, Matt Judon, Josh Sweat, Chase Young, Marcus Davenport, Cleveland Farrell. But I don't think that there's anyone on the open market that would have, first off, that would have the impact of Maxx Crosby at all. But Crosby isn't on the open market. When you take a look at that, I don't think that there's anyone that the Bucs could sign in free agency that would have the impact that Khalil Mack would for 2025 and potentially 2026 at that affordable of a price. Look, I know the end of the 2024 season was disappointing. I know there was a stretch in there that was really frustrating, but the Bucs are going to be a destination team. No, they don't have Tom Brady recruiting guys or players taking pay cuts and team-friendly deals so that they can come in and play with the GOAT. But this franchise, from the front office to the roster, have proven time and time again now that they don't need Tom Brady on their roster in order to find success. They don't need Tom Brady on the roster in order to win the division and make the playoffs. Players around the league are going to be taking notice of the potential on this team, and they're going to want to play in a place where they have a chance to win. They're going to want to go to a place where they see offensive coordinators turning down head coaching jobs to stay with this team. Think back to last year with the Detroit Lions. Ben Johnson was all but the Washington Commanders head coach. He opted to stay in Detroit because Detroit knew that they could make a run at a Super Bowl, and they had their best regular season of all time. So players take note of that. Players see that is a team, that is a franchise, that is a culture that they want to be a part of. Yes, they want to get their money, and they should, but they also want the chance to compete for championships. Liam Coen staying in Tampa is a sign that this is a team that feels that they're close. If Liam Coen didn't feel like this team could compete for a Super Bowl soon, he'd take a head coaching job. Because why would you bother not being in charge of the team and not competing when you could be in charge of a team and be part of a big turnaround? That's a sign that he believes in this team. He believes in this front office. And as much as many Bucs fans won't like it, he believes in Todd Bowles. He didn't stick around hoping that Todd Bowles is going to get fired. He stuck around because he believes they have what it makes to win a championship. And that's exactly what potential free agents are going to take note of. And they're going to look at an offense that was top 4 across the board and say, I want to be part of that. They're going to take a look at a defense that's a couple pieces away from truly being effective. They showed flashes down the stretch, but they're going to take a look and say, this is a defense with a lot of young talent that's really close to being something special. I want to be part of that. I want to be one of the reasons that defense goes from the bottom third of the NFL to the top 5. And it's all there. You need a couple of key pieces, and that starts with a guy like Maxx Crosby or Khalil Mack. And those are guys who, whether it's free agency or whether it's wanting to get away from a team that's going to be rebuilding and not competing for the next 2 to 3 years, saying, you know what? The NFL stands for not for long, and I want to go compete to win a championship. I want to make it to the playoffs. I want to be part of all of that. Something big is going to be coming this offseason. The question is, who is that going to be? That's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Bucs. Coming up tomorrow, we will finally get to our end of season awards, my awards, the Insiders Awards, all of that dropping on tomorrow's episode. In the meantime, please check out everything going on over on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarko_Bucs. Become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. And of course, please make sure you are subscribed on YouTube with those notifications turned on, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. Want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.